We have no intention of leaving the property until we know exactly what's going to be done over what time frame. And frankly, Linda won't let us. We are still across the street. We are still in the professional office building. That's a significant investment. It's a significant asset for the network. It's very important to us what goes across the street, and our intention is to maintain the relationship with Elon going into the future. One of the important things that PHFA looks for in an application is how are you going to serve the community that you're developing on the parcel. So they're looking for things like, we're going to have medical services. So the people who are in the medical office building, those personnel, can go across the street and be part of the residents and sit in the lobby and provide medical services and provide screenings, etc. So again, I want to get directly to what you're asking, which is, are we going to tear down the building, walk away, and leave a straight lot? No.
Right, because Rich had indicated the last time that as soon as the last blade of grass, at your words, as soon as the last blade of grass was planted, it's not your responsibility anymore.
That's correct.
It's Elon. So
we're selling it to them. Let's be clear. They're going to take.
Oh, I get the transaction, but what my concern is, and I think what was voiced when I speak, I'll definitely speak for myself, but I think the concern amongst most of the people here as well is that we're not left with some vacant lot, some plot of grass, if Elon's financing doesn't.
I don't want to put words in Rich's mouth, but there will be a legal transaction that occurs that says when the buildings are down, Elon owns the property. So that's
nobody's disagreeing with you on that.
Okay, I'm just trying to clarify what Rich said, and that's true. So we won't have responsibility.
But you keep saying when the building comes down, are you going to go back to the table and see another way of eliminating the building coming down?
We'll go back and look again. But I guess what I'm telegraphing to everybody here is that we've been down that road with Mission First twice.
Okay, so
we were unsuccessful, not because we said it was not feasible, but because the financing authority said it was not feasible. And because of that, and because of the dependence on financing, we want to go forward with a plan that's going to actually get financing and work. Because that's Stephen? No.
Greg.
Yeah, Greg, I'm sorry. That's Greg's.
Can I jump in real quick just to, if you don't mind, to address a comment? The comment about timeline. I mean, the biggest impediment and the concern, the common thread that I'm hearing here is what's going to happen to this site. And being able to get financing is, right now we have letter of interest from investors that want to purchase tax credits, that want to put this deal together. So on paper, in our business, this deal works. Right now we have an application at the state. The biggest impediment right now is getting through this conversation that we're trying to have right now so we can get buy-in and support to get through zoning. Because the state is not going to go ahead and fund a project that they believe will not have support out here ultimately. So we want to work collaboratively on here.
because you're asking for government funding, correct?
A piece of government
right, so which is our money.
Absolutely. So it is a crucial component to have this. We have to have this conversation, but to the extent that if we move on to talk about the new development, we do need to get through zoning and need your support for getting through zoning.
But you're willing to relook at it.
So let's do it this way, Linda, because this gentleman has been waiting. You've already spoken a few times, so let's let the folks who haven't had a chance to ask questions first. And I know you've been waiting patiently.
Yes, my problem was everybody's talking about getting this building down, building and remodeling and everything else. But what about the environmental hazards that you had there now? You had asbestos, so you already said there's holes in the roof. You got the heat on, so there's water in the building. So now you're looking at a mold mitigation. Mold is going to come in there. Mold is going to grow all through there. It'll grow in the walls, outside the walls. Spores are going to start going. And I live on Finance Street, so the people who live on Logan Street, they're going to get it. Now everybody's talking about this. What about going in and getting this cleaned up first before you start talking about rebuilding this? I mean, you're putting all of us in jeopardy. All the kids that run up and down the street, they walk by a couple of years later, oh, this guy got cancer, that guy got cancer. All the people who live over here, they developed all this cancer. Why? Because the building is sitting there for over a year. You have all of these environmental problems that are going on now. It's not taking you a year from now, 2 months from now, 6 months from now. It's going on now. And nobody seems to be addressing that issue at this moment. And that's very detrimental to everybody in the community. So what about that?
So as soon as we can get the zoning, we will commence with remediation. Remediation is removal of all those environmental hazards. That's the very first step. We can be in there taking that out. Really, I mean, not to put Linda on the spot, but as soon as the zoning is in place, Elon will...
Why do you need zoning in place? Why can't you clean up the mess now?
We need a viable redevelopment plan.
Because we need a plan to redevelop the property. We don't know what it's going to look like. We have to...
But that's still an environmental hazard. Okay,
Made the point.
so the EPA comes in there, once the EPA comes in, then the EPA jumps in and says, hey, you're responsible because this is your building.
Right.
You own this building, and yet you're getting everybody in the neighborhood sick. Are you willing to pay all that money out? And people start coming down with different diseases, and all of a sudden they start putting lawsuits against Einstein because you didn't remove the lead in there, because there's lead in there, there's x-ray machines. There has to be lead.
Right.
That's got to come out. You didn't remove the asbestos, because asbestos can hide behind the walls. You won't even see it. People just start getting sick. You know, like, they have a certain thing, but I went to school for this, and they call a certain thing a sick building. It's a sick building.
Sick
because
building
everything's
syndrome.
closed up. So now you have mold coming in. So now all these things are going on all at one time. And everybody's arguing about take the building down, rebuild the building. Meanwhile, every day that goes on, you're not stopping these environmental issues that are happening.
I don't want people to get... So I agree with you. We need to get in there and remediate the building as quickly as we possibly can.
Exactly. I mean, before you start talking about rebuilding, tearing down, get that stuff, get it out.
No matter what we end up doing, and Doug said this earlier, we have to remediate the building.
Exactly.
So, you know, again, we will do that very quickly and very expeditiously.
Whose responsibility, you or his?
It's our responsibility, it's Einstein's responsibility, although Elon will do it on our behalf.
Hey neighbors. I'm probably one of the youngest guys in here.
No, I got to be.
You're definitely.
He's younger.
26.
26. Nice to meet you. I'm Bradley Harris.
Gregory Scott.
Folks, I work for Wells Fargo Bank. That's besides the point. I moved into Norristown about 2.5 years ago. Okay? I moved in. I was East Norton resident. Okay, so I saw this hospital, you know, I didn't have a say or a survey, I knew that it was going, and, you know, I passed by Germantown Pike, I see the new building. So, every morning I wake up, I live a little closer than Mr. and Mrs. Edmond over there. Hi Jen, how you doing? And, you know, I walk outside, I see this building, and then I see kids, you know, skateboarding, I see graffiti that I pass by every day on that building. So the building hasn't been upkept. And I know that you mentioned, and you know, I do see your agenda, what you're doing, and I'm not pointing fingers or accusing you. I'm demanding accountability because you're taking all these citizens here down the view that, okay, we have this building and it's in our best interest to knock it down or to do whatever that benefits the community. I don't see it. I've been there. I'm the future of Norristown. Let's be honest. I'm the future. I'm 28. I live there with my brother and my girlfriend, probably going to be fiance wife at some point. So I have a very vested interest in this property as what it's going to do to benefit me, the homeowner. Now, I'm not going to go on a huge rant here, but the thing is, I'm a dedicated citizen because that building, I had gotten to know this a while back, and I get my mail and I respond to it. And I went out, it was 15 degrees, I went out of work, and there was a hearing about AT&T putting up a tower. Now, I showed up to the first meeting, they delayed it to another point where I wouldn't have been able to attend. So you know what I did? I took time out of my schedule, I went around on Locust Street when it was 13 degrees out, and I gathered signatures, petitions. Gave my friend Bill Caldwell a call, yeah, he's the Treasury advisor for Montgomery County. I said, okay, Bill, here's the petition, I don't want this, how does this benefit me? They got it shot down. So basically, I'm in a standpoint here, I'm listening to these concerned citizens, and what my question is, where's the accountability?
Well, let me ask you one question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure anything. What is, you said as a homeowner, you have a vested interest, you're the future. So what is it that you're interested in seeing?
I'm interested in my property value not tanking.
Okay, so what do you think would be the best way to get to a place where your property value doesn't tank?
Something better than what's being done now, which is nothing.
Okay, so we'll let Francis
See
then.
that. Yeah.
That's a great
So,
segue.
yeah.
Let's let Francis present to you what might enhance your property value.
So
Good evening, everybody. I appreciate, most of you are probably very familiar with this building by now. I certainly appreciate everybody's time in this.
We're with that angle. We've seen this angle before.
Okay. This is a 4-story building containing 50 one-bedroom apartments. We've got a six-sided light-filled building. We are pursuing what's called a LEED certification, so we hope for this to be an environmentally friendly building. We've got large and ample windows. We have a community room in here, a library, a small game room, as well as on-site property management. This site will contain on-site parking, and it will be fenced. I'm not a colors person. My wife will certainly tell you that. This was a rendering that's, those colors. I happen to believe, and I'm certainly not a historian, and I appreciate all the comments, that this will be a more attractive living situation for future tenants. It will be a more attractive building than the current building that's out there to address your needs. And I'm sure with Mr. Eisenhower's concerns that we could work through most of those concerns. I can't do much about your taxes, but I could probably help with a lot of the other issues that you raised. Yes, ma'am.
Just one question about LEED certification. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I would have heard that in order to increase your LEED certification standards, that you have as little demolition as possible. Is that true? And how come you're not utilizing that aspect of increasing your LEED certification, saving the building, and answering all of our concerns?
I don't want to get into too many details, but I will quickly point out some of the facts, and I certainly appreciate the research people have done into this with historic transactions. 110 units approximately are going to cost you about $30 million on that site. $30 million will require double the current allocation allowed by the state for tax credits. It will also currently probably only yield you about $4 million of equity, not 7.5%. There's some, and I'm not an expert on the historic tax credits, but you're only eligible for what are called hard costs and not for every improvement in there. In addition, the historic program will cause you to actually increase costs to the rehabilitation of the building. Once you go ahead and do that in terms of keeping that building, the other problem that you face are increased and long-term utility and operating costs, which are costs that the owners face, but also the tenants face, who are mostly going to be senior 62 and over. We have done historic buildings before. We've operated them. We've been able to carve with, in the city of Philadelphia, particularly one with extra allocation of funds, and it's a 39-unit building. It's a building at scale, and we were able to do. 110 units is not a scale that we see that's feasible out here. So that's really the prime issue that we see in keeping the building. The scale does not work. A 50-unit building is something that we see that is livable. In our experience in doing senior housing, and our results from market studies that have been done showing that this becomes a community that folks do want to live in. There's clearly a need for affordable, decent, safe senior housing within the area from everything that we've seen. And we want to be responsible neighbors with everybody out here. We will be the contractors to address some of the concerns that Mr. Eisenhower raised. We will be the property managers. We've got 14,000 units that we manage across the tri-state area. We do affordable housing, market rate housing, luxury housing. We go across the broad spectrum out there, and we apply our practices across all divisions. So we bring in quality tenants. We are responsible stewards to our process, and we try, as hard as possible to be responsible neighbors. But we do need feedback, and we want to encourage this open dialogue. One of the things I really do appreciate about this meeting is I think everyone has actually brought up some constructive criticism and some good points and things that we do need to address. And I'm hoping we can get to that point. But I do want to reiterate, the one common thread is, the unknown. And I certainly am a homeowner, and I understand that. I get concerned about, what's going to happen across the street from me, where are my kids going to see, and all of that. But you need to take action. And in my view of this, and what I'm hoping we can convince you guys, is that action is to get support and get behind all of us behind an initiative to really redevelop this parcel to viable use.
I wonder where he lives.
Well, they can go.
Oh, okay.
Wouldn't it be smart for your company to show that our property value is going to gain, and to do some kind of survey to show that if the building is going to come down, new buildings going up, a slight park between each building, what our property value would become? It would only help you. I'm just thinking of a survey.
It will be very difficult to comment exactly on what property values are going to be. I can comment on what's going to happen
So
in the
many of my
parcel.
neighbors are moving. I mean, I have
Yeah.
an 80-some-year-old man that can't sell his house,
Yeah.
living 3 blocks or 3 houses away because it's abandoned. You know, and God, he's lived there all his life. Yeah, I think that would be a good thing to go into.
That's what everyone brought up when I went around for my petition. They're like, what's going on with that hospital? They're concerned about their property values. You bring up a great point, so I agree.
No, it's a valid concern. What I can tell you, what I believe that this development will do is help spur additional development. You will go out there and you have some single-family inventory out there. Sounds like you've already done some of that, but particularly east toward Johnson Highway, as I come in, you've got great historic properties out there, and there are some vacancies out there. And if you see that there's viable development, there's street improvements out here, there's a present 24-hour presence on the site, I believe that you will see increased development, which likewise will contribute to, certainly maintaining your existing property values and your investment in this neighborhood, but also contributing to the long-term vitality of your neighborhood.
Ms. Ross, and then I'll go.
Yeah, no, you don't need Mr. That's all right.
My first experience, or when I came to find out about the league's corporation, I was involved in the study of Chestnut Hill, where the Leagues Corporation was doing that kind of thing in Chestnut Hill, which was a bit expensive. It was geared to appeal to a certain demographic. This, as I'm hearing now, as a proposed plan for Norristown, sounds like a bit of a gentrification type of move that may be happening or going to happen in Norristown, which is surprising because I feel like when I moved into my house right across from Montgomery, I thought, oh yeah, one day I'm going to get a knock on my door and Montgomery Hospital is going to want to buy my house out and they're going to want to expand over onto my property. But to my surprise, Montgomery Hospital picked up with Eisenhower and left out Norristown, which put us in a financial bind now. And I see Norristown becoming a desert because of the shift in demographics and where we have Einstein and other investors not wanting to invest in Norristown. But I see this proposed plan coming, which is kind of leaning toward the gentrification type of move. And I want to find out how that is going to answer Mr. Harris's question on how that is going to help me save my taxes, help me be able to increase the value of my home on Locust Street, and also keep Norristown booming and not become a desert, which it is becoming now because of the shift in demographics and why people are picking up and leaving out of Norristown. We have those resources leaving out of Norristown, and Norristown is just becoming long for it.
A very valid concern, and one of the issues you raised is, the taxation issue. It's a double-edged sword. So, as when you talk about gentrification, when you talk about these movements in many neighborhoods, often people fear a rise in property values because they are linked directly to a rise in property taxes, which force people out. So, one of the major tools to combat that is really planned and phased development that goes with an increase in time. I think everybody would like to see the property values go up at a reasonable pace, certainly not decline like many of us have seen, especially after 2008. So we believe responsible development is really the way to do this. But I want to go back a little bit to what you first said in terms of the LEED certification. And I want to point out there are different levels of LEED certification. Our intent here is not to achieve the highest level of LEED certification. You're right, it is very expensive. I think I'm familiar with the homes you're talking about over Springfield Avenue in Germantown, and they are market rate homes. They're beautiful. I believe there was either a gold or a platinum certification on those homes. We are not looking to do that. We want to create a smart building. It's going to have green building techniques. It's going to get a LEED certification. And our ultimate goal here is to use environmentally friendly principles, but keep long-term utility costs and operating costs on the building as low as possible. That makes it more affordable. It allows us to generate income on the building to contribute towards social services for our senior tenants. do more for the property, do more in terms of landscaping, and ultimately take care of this building so that we don't have a building that's going to be in trouble down the road. The way these deals are structured, we have investors. Wells Fargo is certainly a housing tax credit investor. These guys will not let us bring down, so we need to make sure that these buildings are developed, and the term we use, underwritten responsibly, to be able to do that. So our investment or our interest in the LEED certification is at this point merely the environmental aspect that we see as feasible here, but also the utility costs.
May I make one other comment? I don't know, Linda, I know you're waiting to ask a question, but is that okay? Because as I was listening to what Francis was saying, listening to what, sorry, I didn't get your name. Rosalind was saying, and others, Brandon. You know, it seems to me that I'm trying to connect the dots a little bit, and it seems like, there are concerns about the safety of the building and the environment. There are concerns about the property values, and there's concern about timeliness and the efficiency with which the speed with which we can get into a development. Am I getting that right? I mean, I just want to make sure that we're understanding where the principal concerns lie.
And the concern to preserve the original building. I think we started off with that and
right.
have veered away from that, but the effort to take the time and do a feasibility study to see, can you preserve that original building and still have affordable housing? I mean, my concern about that building is I see the Rivercrest development over in Hollywood. They spent tons of money on it. Have you seen what it looks like? The siding is falling off the building. The place is built so poorly that the houses are looking like a shambles. We have a beautiful masonry building that we're saying we would like to preserve.
Right. So let me just grab
brick and cement board siding.
Let me just grab this for a second. So let's not do the thing that we all tend to do as human beings, which is take something that's happening someplace else without really knowing what's behind it and apply it to a new project. We will bring you in. We will show you what we're going to use to develop these buildings and build